We are back. Happy Monday, Willie.
Happy Monday, my friend. I'm driving
We,
across the country. Currently, right at the base of Mount Rushmore in South Dakota.
we should start maybe like do an article or a graphic. A graphic will work, and put a pin where we record the show from. Because
Yeah,
the Flamingo Room, we got Rochester, Easton, Coeur d'Alene. I think Mount Rushmore is a new destination.
it's a new one. It's a new one. It's an
We
interesting little town, that's for sure.
Yeah, we need to make a graphic with a map and put pins uh, where we record
Yeah.
from. Because we
So a
wanted to
little
do a show
different setup
yesterday,
here.
but
I got the headset. I got like a little traveling podcast kit, but yeah, I did want to do a show yesterday. It seems like it's only been a week. We did our last show last Monday,
last
but it
Sunday,
seems
yeah.
like well, it seems like it's it's been way longer than that. It seems like there's so much to hit, so much to wrap up on. Gilman kind of seems like old news. Richie Figgs kind of seems like old news, but it was in the space of a week.
I know, and I think too, like, and I think this is one reason why people wanted us to do a show. Is like I think everybody offers a different, not just a take, but opinions, and I think different people contribute different values. It's like I don't really care about hitting topics that are almost a week old now, because I think, the Richie Figgs one we talked a lot about with is Arizona State okay, and you've got a lot of thoughts on that. So I think there's a lot to talk about over this past week, like you said, because it does feel like days during the transfer portal feel like dog years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Richie Figgs in Arizona State. I mean, Ja'Cory left last year. Kyle Parko left last year, and now Richie Figgs leaves. And people say, "What's up at Arizona State? Are they okay? Are they okay?" Um, and I mean, the circumstances are look they had two national finalists last year in Figs and Parka, or Figs and Teamer. All right, you don't produce that at that kind of level, and they had 4 or 5 All Americans, so like half their lineup was All Americans. You don't produce at that level if you're not doing something right. And you could say, well, they're losing these guys. Well, they're they're losing them because other schools are offering bags of cash. Now, you could say, um, well, if they had if they did what they needed to do, they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't leave anyway, right? And maybe that's true.
Well, I posed the
Um,
question
but
to you. I said, are they poachable for a reason? And that's what kind of led us into a chat in our group chat, which, because a lot of people are asking, like, is Arizona State okay? Like you just said,
well, they're every single one of them was sixth year, their senior year, right? So they're taking their one last ride and cashing in on it. And I'm not saying they're doing it purely for financial reasons, but it doesn't hurt. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, in football it's a little different, and we're seeing some crazy stuff. I mean, I don't know if you're paying attention to this Nico
well,
situation
I
at Tennessee.
I want to talk about that because I had some people that clearly don't understand my tweet. So that's on the docket.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't see your tweet either, or I didn't see your tweet.
Mm.
But football is a little different and basketball, because you have a lot of programs that have a lot of money. In wrestling, you have only a handful of teams that have a significant amount of money. And so maybe 3, 4, 5 of the top 10 programs have money to just outspend somebody. Um, and at this point in time, like Arizona State has money. They don't have money like that, right? They don't have money to match. Um, but they do, and people are kind of like, is Arizona State okay? Arizona State is actually in a really good position. I mean, a
Yeah,
really good position.
and I think one regarding the money, one false narrative is all of these transfers have happened because of Sunkist kids being gone. That has nothing to do
Yeah,
with any of this.
that's not true. That's not true. Um, I mean, Sunkist kids, you know, they're freestyle Greco type stuff, and that was their mission. Their mission was never NIL. Um, Now, does Art Martori, did Sunkist have a little honey pot for ASU? I'm sure, um, but that was never there before, right? That was never there. That was never there for NIL purposes. I mean, hell, I think Sunkist stopped after 1 year of NIL being implemented. So yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean they in 2023 they announced they were going to wind down with the Olympics, and Arizona State did. I mean, they haven't had that many athletes, so it hasn't been out there as much. But they have I think it's the Artrius, for what it's called, wrestling club, where they do have an RTC. Caleb Larkin's registered for the Open through them. Like, so they do still have an RTC, and the Nico thing with the Nico thing with the Tennessee quarterback. What I had tweeted is, it's not long until we see this in wrestling. And right away, people are like, we're already seeing this in wrestling. And what my tweet was, what we're seeing right now is poaching and guys getting the portal to get a bag. The Nico situation is very unique because he's getting $2.2 million. He's not even the best quarterback by a mile. And he's saying, give me $4 million or I'm going to transfer. That's a situation we're not really seeing in wrestling, where you have, maybe on a smaller scale, like, let's say, I don't know, Illinois wants to retain Lucas Bird, and he's getting some offers, and they're like, don't worry, we'll take care of you, stay here. That's one thing. But for a guy to go and say, like, imagine, for example, a Penn State guy saying, hey, Kale, I want $3 million or I'm out. That is a situation we haven't seen yet, and I think we're seeing, again, a lot of guys wanting to test the portal to see their value. We're not seeing a lot of guys just make up their own value and say, hey, coach, give me this or we're out.
Yeah, and it's tricky because, like I said, football, there's other teams that they probably have 3 or 4 million. They probably have 2.5. Something to up Nico's offer. But in wrestling, there's like 3 teams that have that kind of money.
Yeah.
So, and so that's why I think it's hard. I almost don't understand when people say, what is wrong with Arizona State? I mean, to me, it's all up in your face. What do you mean, what is wrong? There are schools offering giant sums of cash that Arizona State can't match. And, I mean, to me, that's rather simple.
Well, I think...
Listen,
I was going to say, I think the transfers coupled with their down year, they only qualified 3 for NCAAs, and I think if you couple that performance with guys getting bags, I think that's part of the picture of what's going on at ASU, more so than just, hey, they had Figgs, Parko, Teamer poached.
Part of the reason they were down was because they got 2 guys poached the year before. Well, they only had this many qualifiers. Yeah, because 2 of them already got poached.
Yeah, I mean, they were 5th, 6th year guys, so it's not like, some of these guys, I think.
That's one thing you can say. I mean, I think a fair criticism. I think a fair criticism might be, okay, well, what do they have coming up? Or you lose guys you didn't have. They didn't have a lot of depth. They didn't have a lot of guys waiting in the wings. Well, Caleb Larkin got hurt. So you could say they could have been better at spots. Like, how come, regardless of Parko, regardless of Teamer, regardless of Richie Figgs, they could have been better at 74, 84. And that's a fair criticism. But I think they're getting back. They got some guys coming in, both Larkins. And I think here's what I want to say. I think that stability-wise, and that's sort of the backdrop to all this, right? The backdrop is on how solid of footing is Arizona State. How solid of a footing is Zeke Jones and staff. I think that isn't a big concern. I think they're fine. I think they're more than fine. Um, Everybody talks about NIL and the portal, and for good reason. But what we talk less about is scholarship expansions for these schools, for
Mm-hmm.
the schools that opt in. And Arizona State is going to gain a lot. The school is in on athletics, and so Arizona State wrestling is gaining a lot of scholarships. And so while they might not have they might not have the money to pay somebody $500,000 or $250,000, they're going to have the luxury of should we get Zach Ryder or Rocco Welsh? Well, it used to be, let's just get one. We don't need two 74-pounders, right? Now they don't have to worry about that. Just get them both.
Yeah.
Or even in the past where it was like, well, we really need a 49, but man, we really need a 74 too, and we only have 1.5 scholarships left, and how are we going to figure it out? And we really need two full. Now they don't have to decide about that, and that can build tremendous depth. And I don't think they're going to be in the predicaments that they've been in the last year or two.
Yeah, and I'll bring up two other points regarding the transfer portal in Arizona State. One, I saw some people mention Jesse Vasquez. I think he's transferring out simply because Pearson Manville is going to start at 49, and I think Vasquez ends up starting somewhere else at 49. I don't really think that's a big, we see transfer portal, we think NIL
No, Jesse,
and this and that, but
to my knowledge, Jesse got in trouble.
that could be too. The other thing is Colton Schultz. Sometimes we see these 5th, 6th-year guys transfer out, and then you saw it with Parco and Teamer, whether it's injuries, whatever, not kind of pan out. Schultz also debated leaving. There was talk he was entering the portal, end up staying, and I'd say he had a pretty damn good year. Earned his 5th All-American status, taking 3rd in a weight class that had Gable in the bracket, White in the bracket, Kirk, etc. So I think Schultz staying and having a great year also speaks a lot to Arizona State right now. Shout out Eric Thompson.
Yeah. And they have a good stat. That's what I was going to say. Eric Thompson is a really great upperweight guy. So, yeah, I don't think there's now. I mean, Arizona State had great years. Was this the best one? I mean, was this up there? No. But I don't think it's all doom and gloom. And in fact, I think there's probably really good days on the horizon for them.
Yeah. Yeah, they just got the Zuba brothers or something from Jersey.
Yeah, I just mean I can't stop thinking about. I can't write off Arizona State when they got these scholarships coming. I think that's incredibly valuable. I mean, when you don't have to, when you can recruit 25 blue chips instead of 10.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, here's the thing. As much as I say I'm the brain and I know all the recruits, this and that, some of them are gonna invariably. Some of them are gonna be busts. Some of them are gonna be really good in high school, and they're gonna be really great, and they're gonna get on campus, and they're gonna stop working hard, or they're gonna get a girlfriend, and they're gonna get distracted, or they're gonna have trouble in the classroom. Whatever the case, there's always gonna be busts, right? So you can have some attrition when you have this roster, when you have the scholarship limit increased.
Yeah.
You can have a couple busts and say, so what? We got this guy too.
Yeah. No, for sure. Any final ASU thoughts, or we can move on to some Oklahoma State stuff?
Well, I guess Richie Figgs is a natural segue.
Yeah.
He goes from Arizona State, where he was a national champ last year. This year, at times, he looked like the dude. Now, he didn't wrestle a lot early in the season, and, you kind of were like, yeah, is he at the same level? This year, or middle of the season, I thought he looked really good. He did take a loss at Big 12s, but despite the loss, I thought he wrestled hard and I thought he wrestled good. But at nationals, man, he took that first loss to Peterson and he kind of I don't know. It seemed like he threw up his hands at that point.
Yeah. No, it did. It definitely seemed like, and again, Arizona State's a perennial wrestling program, and when you only have three guys at NCAA's, I'm sure the team camaraderie definitely felt off too,
Well, that's what I'm told. I'm told he was frustrated. He felt like he had not a lot of stuff to fight for at the time. At the NCAA tournament after he lost, and so it gets emotional. I get it. If you don't feel like the motivation is there, but that's the question. That's the question right now. He's going to go to Oklahoma State. Is the motivation still there? He reached the pinnacle of NCAA wrestling, and this year was sort of a low. Um, does he have the motivation to get back on top? And what's he look like at 133? Because
Yep.
he's apparently going 133. And frankly, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what Richie Figgs at 133 looks like. Um, I've always thought he was kind of a smaller 25, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
It's also crazy that Oklahoma State now has 6 guys on their roster, I believe, at 133.
6 guys, and Richie seems like the answer, but there's really no sure thing, right? I mean, who's their 33 next year? I mean,
Well,
Richie leads, but he's never wrestled that way in his life.
you penciled in Sakamoto, didn't you, in Crystal Ball?
I did, that's obviously before.
Yeah.
That's obviously before they got Figs. I still think that I cannot get like those McComas matches with Jax Forrest out of my head. I mean, he's a hair from beating Jax a couple times, or at least right in it. And it, either way, the fight and the scrambling ability, and I'm not writing off JJ McComas either, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is at 33. For now, I would say Sakamoto. I think in another year, he'd only been on campus when they wrestled him against Iowa. He's only been on campus like not long, so give him another year to get acclimated to folk style, and I think he could be pretty darn good. I mean, Drake didn't beat him up too bad. Drake, the national finalist,
Well, 11-1 majored him pretty decently.
was it?
Yeah. Other Oklahoma State stuff, Brayden Thompson, during this past week since our last show. So I put out that he was hopping in the portal. And, a lot of times when I put out graphics, it's either because it's already official or if the wrestler or their family tells me, like, hey, I'm hopping in the portal, or hey, he's hopping in the portal, I'll put one out. So I put the graphic out that Brayden was getting in the portal. And then, he didn't ever officially land in there, but there were people saying that, hey, conversations are happening. And then I spoke to his dad last night. His dad said, that they talked things over, and he's going to stay in Stillwater.
Yeah, sort of an interesting situation where almost like a serial kind of thing where Rocco goes to Penn State, Ryder goes to Okie State, and Brayden Thompson's at least hints that he's going to consider his options. Um, yeah, so I don't know, and I've also heard it's kind of like I don't know. It kind of got one of those whisper down the alley things where it was like, uh, yeah, I don't know if Brayden can make 184 anymore. He weighs 210, and then next person you talk to, yeah, I heard he weighs 220. Oh yeah, I heard he weighs 290 pounds. Like, so it's like I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know what Thompson's going to do. I don't know how comfortably he can make 84. If he does make 84, can he beat out Zach Ryder? I don't think that. And um, this is just my gut, and maybe I'm looking at too much into one match. Um, I I don't think that he beats Merrill right now, but maybe. Um, So I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. There's a million different Oklahoma State lineup scenarios that could possibly happen, um, and Brayden could factor in there for sure. I mean, I we said last show. I mean, this is a guy that won the junior world team spot over guys that we currently think a whole lot of, right?
Yep.
So he had a rough year last year because he was cutting his tail off, or 2 years ago, and we know that was under the old regime, right? The old regime liked to make you cut your tail off, and um, Brady he kind of looked like that. So um, he's a great asset. Still 3 years to go. Uh, Again, I don't know what weight he is, but it surprised me that, and there was some action there, right? There was some chatter behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
that Iowa was making a play for him, and I thought, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Yep.
I know they have Ludington coming in, but if they could figure it out weight wise, eligibility wise, take a gap year, take a redshirt year, Brady hold 84 for one more year or something, right? It made a lot that Brady to Iowa made a lot of sense to me. I also heard other stuff about him to Illinois. Uh, I don't know. I don't know,
Yeah, and
but he's a good.
there's a lot of questions that I don't think we're going to get answers to for a while. D Lockett has he put it on Instagram. I'm going to be the 2026 national champ at 165 pounds. That leads me to believe that D does not want a redshirt next year. Does he end up redshirting? I don't know. It sounds like if somebody's dead set on wrestling, that he's likely going to wrestle. But you never know. It's April right now. That decision doesn't really need to be made for 6, 7 more months. So I think things could change. Um,
It doesn't, but but if I don't know where I sit. If D wants to run, you let your horses run.
yeah, no, I agree. But my point in that is if D does redshirt, that opens up a lot more lineup possibilities because Facundo could slide down to 65, potentially Ryder to 74, now Brayden at
Yeah,
84, Cody Merrill at 97. So it does, you're seemingly not going to have all those guys obviously in the lineup. Um, but time will tell. I feel like we're not really going to get answers on that until the fall.
no, it drives me nuts.
Well, as soon
It
as
drives me.
as soon as I put out that like, hey, Brayden's staying in Stillwater, immediately it was responses with just the questions. So what weight's he gonna go? So is Zach going down? Like, it's like we don't know. A lot of times these coaches hold
I mean,
two.
David don't know. David don't know. I talked to David last week, and I brought up crystal ball, and he's like, "How do we do?" and he's like, "What's our lineup?" Because I don't know what our lineup is. I said, "You know how it is. I guess." But he really they really have a lot of pieces in play and pieces in flux. So
Yeah,
um, we don't know. David doesn't even know.
yeah. And along the lines of Oklahoma State news, Thomas Gilman rumors surfaced just after we put out our Sunday special last week, and then rumors started circulating. Hey, Gilman might be out of Oklahoma State, and then Troy Spratley put a picture of them two in the tunnel out, and it's like, And then I texted Gilman, and I said, it's funny because Gilman and I were talking about doing a show just after the season ended, and he was leaving from NCAA's to go right on vacation with Europe since they had family in town who could help watch the kids. And he said, let's do it when I get back. I said, perfect. I said, Oklahoma State fans are going to love this episode. And then all of a sudden, he's leaving Oklahoma State. And I texted him and said, are the rumors true? And he said, yeah, I'm heading back out east. And so I said, okay, let's do a show. So we did a show. It was an awesome hour-long show. I think it's like a sixth time on the show. And every time he just delivers. But yeah, basically, if you haven't listened to the show or you did, he said that there was coaching staff
I believe he doesn't mow
disagreements.
his lawn regularly.
Yeah, that to me is like, just imagine being the guy in the HOA who goes to Gilman's house and says, "Hey, Gilman, you need to cut your grass." But yes, there was
Mow your lawn.
coaching staff contention, disagreements, and he's heading back east. He's going to coach at the NLWC now.
Yeah, to me, it kind of came out of the blue. Although, if you talk to some people, I guess it didn't. Whatever the issues were, I don't think happened right at the end. I guess there
Correct. There
was
was a
some.
build up.
It was a build up, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, when I've seen them on occasion, when I went down to a duel, when I watched them even on, a streaming platform or TV, when I seen them at NCAAs, they looked all right. They looked good. I mean, one of the first dual meets of the year, what was it? The Missouri duel. They looked completely on the same page. I don't know. I think they probably handled it pretty well
Yeah.
from the outside. I didn't see any signs. Um, but whatever. Thomas is and I think both of them are really, but Thomas has always been one to me, and he's a polarizing figure. Like you either love him or hate him. But Thomas has always been to me, no matter what your opinion of him is, he's a very principled person.
Yeah.
If he thinks something is right, he's going to do it. If he thinks something's wrong, he's going to stay away from it. And so yeah, his prerogative was, I guess, to leave.
Do you have any ideas on who you think Oklahoma State might tap to fill that position?
I don't, but it is really fascinating because off the top of my head, and little guys don't get offended. Off the top of my head, I don't know a whole heck of a lot of available lightweight coaches. Now, maybe I'm pigeonholing my sort of search because maybe it's not an available guy. Maybe it's a guy from that's already
Listen,
got a job.
I don't think it's even gonna be a coach. I mean, I think it's gonna two people that I had throw a name out there that just I could see is I think you can bring someone who's already in house like Dayton Fix and put him on staff if he wants to, or
Dayton to me would be the
do you
layup.
get a wrestler who's not yet coaching, someone like a Seth Gross, or someone who hasn't hit the coaching circuit yet, but has had success, So I don't know. Those are two guys that names like kind of knee-jerk reaction names, but like you said, there's not a lot of traditional lightweight coaches seemingly available.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I would love to see Dayton get it. I think he's a Cowboy through and through. I think he gives a little bit. He's the one mainstay there from the
Yeah.
last administration. He is absolutely beloved by that town. Um, so I'd like to see him get it. But I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean, I don't even know. If
Caldwell
Dayton
too,
wants it.
mainstay from the last administration, but
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if Fix
Well,
wants it. That's my thing though. Like I think if Fix wants it, he's a great fit for it.
yeah, yeah. I'd like to see him get it. But outside of that, I don't know what David would do, who he would look at, prior relationships. In his past. Does he go back to PA? Does he go back to somebody that he wrestled with growing up? That's a buddy. I don't know.
Do we keep the Oklahoma State Penn State wars going? And he gets Mark McKnight.
Maybe they what they could even move Pearsall in and backfill Pearsall's position if they wanted to.
Yeah, because he's technically recruiting coordinator.
He has some hybrid type deal. I'm not exactly sure.
But the Nittany Wrestling Club gaining Gilman is huge for those Penn State lightweights.
I
And
think
we talked about it in the show because you got Lilidol, you got Ono, you got Blaze, you've got Davis Nagao. You have so many great lightweights in that room, and he's pumped to get with those guys.
I'm not gonna say that it's a devastating loss for Oklahoma State. I'm not gonna say, well, lightweights don't go to Oklahoma State now because that's not true. They're gonna do a phenomenal job. But I think that Thomas Gilman is a special lightweight coach.
I agree.
I think he's like a freaking horse whisperer.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a huge get to have him back in State College. Okay, do you want to talk UNC for a few minutes? Because they've been pretty active in the portal. They got, obviously the big one was locking up AJ Ferrari, has 2 or 3 years remaining. They don't, not 100% clear. And then they also got Bryce Hepner.
It's 100% clear.
Well, if he gets a medical red shirt, he thinks he might be able to get 3 years. You think medical 2 done deal?
2. Okay. He wrestled in 2 NCAAs. Well, I guess the 1 year was the COVID year, right? But
that's the
anyway. To me, it's next topic. I'm not buying what he's selling on that front, but anyway, yeah.
Because 2021 was COVID year, that was a free year. 2022, he got a medical red shirt. That's when he got in the car accident. He only wrestled a couple matches early in the year. But then he did not wrestle in 2023 and 2024. And you can make the Olympic red shirt potential argument for 2024. I don't know what you'd give them for 2023. So then obviously 2025 sophomore, 2026 junior, 2027 senior. So I think 2 years too.
I guess he could get another one. But that 1 year where he got the medical, I don't think that was a medical.
WrestleStat has it as a medical. That's the year that he only wrestled through he wrestled 10 matches.
Yeah, but he wrestled second semester.
He did wrestle second semester.
You can't get a medical for that. Forget about it.
Well, he had to have gotten a medical, or he would not have 2 years left. He'd only have 1 year left. Otherwise, he'd have. He's wrestled in 3 second semesters. If that's your math, he's wrestled in 3 second semesters.
3 second semesters, 1 don't count.
Correct. So he has 2 left. I guess regardless. All right. So
we're back.
So he's got 2 years. So UNC picks up AJ Ferrari at 197. They pick up Bryce Hepner at 57. So some good moves for UNC.
Yeah, I like it. There were I thought AJ handled himself really well, especially towards the end of the season. And there were a lot of eyes. There were a lot of eyes watching not just how AJ competed and performed and finished. They were watching how he handled himself. What words came out of his mouth, what actions or antics came out, and I thought he handled himself pretty well. And I believe, not 100% sure, but I believe this is a 1 year deal at North Carolina. Do you have any information on that?
I don't think it's a 1 year deal. I think he wants to stay there. I think they're even excited to have him on the RTC side through LA 2028 after he graduates. So I think this is more of a play that he wants to be there long term. I don't know if maybe
he does. I hope he does want to be somewhere long term, and I hope he is happy there and finds footing and finally finds some stability. Because I mean, the words out of his mouth are that he wants to improve as a person, and he seems to be making strides towards that. I think it's legitimate in what he says. But Allen, Texas, Bergen, Blair, Oklahoma State, Bakersfield, a brief stint in Iowa, North Carolina. I hope part of maybe his personal growth, or something that can assist with his personal growth, is having roots somewhere for at least a little bit.
Yeah, and 100%, I agree with you. I think it'd be great if he is there long term. And he did an interview on FRL with Y, and he talked about it. He's like, look, I've got Rob Cole, who's coached 2 4-timers. I've got Ramos, who brings Iowa, Chenzo, who brings Penn State. I have the best of all worlds here in North Carolina. I think he ends up staying there. I do. Obviously, only time will tell. But
I like it. I know I can be bombastic at times and take a hardline stance and be outspoken, but it's much more. I am at my wits' end with the poaching and the buying of guys, and it's much more. And that this, I'm not saying poaching, but that certainly money came into play in this equation, right?
yeah,
I mean, AJ he's a perennial All American. He ain't going nowhere for free, and he's probably not going anywhere for even cheap. So he probably cost a pretty penny. And so the listeners of the show, I don't want them to say, "Well, Willie, you get ticked off when this team buys a guy, and you get how come you're not ticked off that UNC bought a guy?" Good question. Perhaps I'm being a little bit hypocritical, but to me, it comes down to team. I think the team finishes. I think the team finishers are phony nowadays. I mean, like, okay, you took whatever. You got the podium. Yeah, you bought five guys.
right.
Half your team is mercenaries. You spent whatever, right? So maybe I am being hypocritical, but in my purview, like if it didn't affect the team race, I guess I'm okay with buying somebody if it doesn't affect the team race.
You're a purist. You're a purist. You just don't
I
want.
don't know.
By the way, I'm sure UNC wants to be a podium team, so I'm sure they're hoping it
True,
does
true,
impact
true.
the
Now,
podium.
now the people in the ACC might be saying, "Well, Willie, it does affect team race things. Like we could lose a duel because of it. What if North Carolina wins the ACC because of his points?" Yeah, you got a point. You got a point. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite here. It's just to me, it's a little bit more digestible that it isn't. It isn't just a traditional power school plugging a hole.
Yeah, listen, I think too when you have guys, in my opinion, when you have guys that are more transparent, that money plays into it, and that there's various factors. And Rocky Elam came on last week, announced he's going to Iowa State, and said money
There's
definitely
another one.
plays a factor. He said,
There's another one. I mean, we got to talk about Iowa State, but you know, and so we need to address this too. I tweeted Nebraska's the second best program, and it's not close. Okay, now I got to pay the piper, right? I got to back that up, and so the second best program thing, the way in which that's defined is a question too. What I meant was in regards to stability. I think that Nebraska is one of the most stable programs in the country, and I think that a lot of other teams, namely Oklahoma State, namely Iowa, namely Michigan, I think they're very volatile. I don't think you can say your program is stable when you're reliant on a bank account. And to me, that's what they are. I think that's inarguable. Um, I mean, I know people are going to say, "Well, that's your allegiance, that's your fandom for Nebraska." No, I mean, I think Virginia Tech's more stable than most programs. Now, you can say, "Willie, that doesn't mean Virginia Tech's a better program than Iowa." Okay, we're talking semantics. I think that Virginia Tech, NC State, Cornell, I think these teams are much more stable and less volatile than some of the big dogs. I don't know. Do you disagree with that?
I don't know. I was thinking about it when you were explaining it to me, and it's like Nebraska had a really great year, so it's also easier to make that argument after. I mean, two
Well,
national
okay. So,
champs, 8 All-Americans from 8 different states. Like, they had a banner year. So I don't know. I don't want to say it's an overreaction to this year because I agree that they're a staple, but it does feel like it's an easy year after an incredible performance.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying. I'm not saying that. And of course, like the criticism to that tweet a lot was like, yeah, you can say that this year, but they're not beating Oklahoma State in the future. They're not beating Iowa in the future. No, I am not saying that. I am not saying. I am not saying that Nebraska is going to finish ahead of other schools in the standings every year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fully aware of what team points are, but I'm talking about stability of the program. When you're replacing 3, 4, 5 guys and spending a boatload to do it from other teams, to me that's not stability. That's that's being opportunistic. That's being active. That's being proactive. It's not a recipe for stability.
Hey, we kind of missed a big one with Oklahoma State.
What?
We missed that they added Lee Roper to the RTC.
Yeah.
I forgot about that hire.
Yeah, that was rumored for quite a while. I mean, in back channels, you know, it wasn't like a really out there, but it people were
People are
talking
saying
about
it.
it a little. Yeah. Um, and in retrospect, and Lee never Lee never said anything indicating Oklahoma State, but he did. Lee text me a little bit ago, like after NCAAs. Hey, what do RTC coaches around the country? You know what the RTC coaches around the country make? And I'm like, what are you getting at? But
No,
Lee
you
is
knew
like,
what he was getting at. I remember exactly when you got that tweet or that text, and you're
yeah,
like, this kind of confirms the back channel things we're hearing.
yeah. But Lee is also a cerebral guy. Like he'll like keep records of what RTC. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
didn't know how to take it, but with the other rumors going on, it made sense. But I don't know. But Lee's a good guy, and I think he's a very innovative guy. I think he looks at things a bit differently than most people, and you know, in the in the fine print, I think what's interesting is that um, the title. Like Lee Roper is like what the
Executive director
executive director and something something
and I think it's in senior level coach or
senior
something.
level coach, and Zoe, who they also added officially, was the developmental coach.
Yep.
I think that kind of signals. And when I text Lee, I said, "Congratulations, man! Love you. Proud of you. Uh, really looking forward to your next tenure." And he was like, "Thanks, man. Um, gonna see if we can do this RTC model a little bit different." So again, he thinks in innovative ways. So it's going to be interesting how he manages it, how he directs it, what type of things he implements structurally. Um, Not entirely right. Not I guess what I'm getting at. It's not entirely about how to defend a leg lace, like him
Yeah.
teaching. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So that was a good pickup. It'll be interesting to see who UNI replaces him with. I mean, he's been there for a decade now. He's been there a long time.
Yeah, yeah, and I think maybe it was a natural time for him to leave with he was very close to Parker. So Parker graduates, and probably if he's ever going to leave, good timing. Um, Interesting to see what Parker does.
I was just
Right?
going to say, do you think more likely Parker steps into that role as a UNI coach, or does he maybe leave with Roper and, and one reason, like you said, not only are Lee and Parker very close, but also the training partners for Parker at the Cowboy RTC.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm sure that Parker has international aspirations, or at least wants to test his
hey, he's registered for the Open next week
right.
or 2 weeks.
So he probably wants high level training and high level partners, and but I this is just my preference. I don't know. Parker doesn't care about what I think, but I'd love to see him join the staff there at UNI.
Yeah, it's always cool to see guys stick around, so they'll be interesting. Um, I was actually thinking about reaching out to him to come on the show, and I was going to tell him like a lot of these times when I reach out to guys to come on the show, I kind of say like if you're planning any moves soon, like wait and then talk about that move. So might ask him like if he's leaning one way or another, and maybe we do a show. So yeah, that was a big one to cover. Forgot to mention that we were talking Oklahoma State. Did you have any final Nebraska thoughts? You kind of explained your tweet, but also they did lose Pinto, who landed with Rutgers last week.
Yeah, and so it's sad to see Lenny go. I'm happy to see Rutgers land him and pick up another nice piece. And Rutgers is doing a good job in the portal, right? Plugging some holes.
Yeah, Hunter Kaka this weekend they announced. They got Remy Cotton from Michigan State. They got Lenny Pinto.
Yeah, so good upper weight reinforcements. And that Shane Cartagena Walsh, who was not a big time recruit, like he was solid, but he wasn't much discussed. He had a very fine season this year. So the upper weights at Rutgers, they have a really solid group. Connor Harrer was a freshman this year. Andrew Barbosa out of California could get into the lineup next year. The back half of that lineup's really, really kind of solid. But the thing about Nebraska, and this goes back to, you'll see me do this in Crystal Ball a lot. Ono comes in, and he's like the best in the world, right? Like, so how am I going to have anybody ahead of him? But I've never seen him wrestle a folk style match. And I'm going to give Mendez and Hardy the respect.
Yeah.
I hedge a little bit, right? Like, I feel like it would be disrespectful almost to put Ono ahead of those guys. I did the same thing. I did the same thing with Parker and Starachi last year, right? Starachi has a track record, but Kekaisen's the returning champ at 84, and for me, the final factor in the first Crystal Ball was the respect thing. Keep the guy there. And so what I'm getting at in a long roundabout way is that's kind of what I had with Pinto in the first 2026 Crystal Ball.
Yep.
Is I had Pinto in there. But the reality of the situation is he was going to have a hard time winning the spot. He was going to. What I'm told is that LJ Araju would probably have been the starter. And so I am not saying that Lenny left because he was going to be on the bench. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there was a roster battle there. Lenny's entering his last year. He's best buds with Labriola. And his family lives a half hour from Rutgers. Yeah. So all things adding up, that's kind of what the situation was.
Yeah. So, all right, what's next?
If you don't know who LJ Raju is, kid out of North Dakota, showed a lot of promise early on. Like he was one of those Midwest kids that would notch a good win, but it wasn't always consistent, and you sort of kept your eye on him and like, okay, this kid might have something. And then he went to Fargo and he didn't do great. And then he went to Super 32 and he rode the tar out of everybody. and he won the whole damn thing. Um, and so you knew and you saw the folk style potential. He wrestles for Brazil internationally, and his loss at Pan Am's and his loss at Worlds were both to Zack Ryder. So that's kind of where he is.
Yeah. Yeah, he's tough. I was looking him up when you told me initially that, he would be the guy you'd slot in there. Looks like he's had an incredible young career so far.
Yeah, and back to Crystal Paul. That's why I knew what the situation is. I knew it was likely that Araju would start, but I gave Pinto the respect and the benefit of the doubt, and I put him in Crystal Ball, and that's how I operate a lot of times.
Let's talk a little Iowa State, because I kind of
Iowa State,
that
a lot of moves.
They got Rocky Elam, which I think he's a fantastic guy. We had talked about his injuries last year, and he came on the show and talked about his injuries, kind of how he's feeling, what he's thinking, and I think it's a great pickup for Iowa State, who also almost got Ethan Miller. Ethan Miller was pretty set. He loved Iowa State, was basically set to commit there, and Virginia Tech came in at the 11th hour and got him to commit over the weekend. But yeah, Iowa State lands Rocky's a big one.
That's that was surprising to me, because I thought, hell, it was mid-season. As soon as Rocky declared that he was taking a medical, that he was done for the year, the Iowa message boards lit up and said, "Hey, if he medicals, he would be a perfect fit for Buchanan." And they ain't wrong. That would have been perfect. It would have been a perfect stopgap for Ludington to redshirt and a bridge to him. And so it was a good point by the message boards posters. And I thought that makes all the sense in the world. Iowa has the most money. It's the smartest play. That is likely to happen. And it didn't. It was Iowa State. I was surprised.
Yeah, and Iowa State also picked up Isaac Dean from Ryder at 84. So Iowa State's lineup is looking more and more like it's coming together, where you got Mesa 25, Evan Frost 33, Jacob Frost 41, Echemendia 49, Panero 57, Aiden Riggins or Connor at 65, MJ Gatan 74, Isaac Dean 84, Elam 97, Younger Bastida 285, and just like that, their lineup's looking pretty solid top to bottom.
Yeah, that's a really great lineup. And I think it's big if the Frost brothers can maintain their weights. If the Frost brothers can maintain 33-41, it's a really solid lineup.
Yeah, and I would say, too, that I don't know. I've seen some speculation that maybe Evan Frost goes 49 and Echemendia goes down to 41. I don't know how likely that is, just some speculation.
Well, I don't know. Echemendia is really adamant that he doesn't want to make 41. And so I don't know what they do there. And the Frost brothers have always seemed enormous to me. But I don't know. It's like the opposite thing. Like, Evan Frost seems way too big for 33 to me. Echemendia seems not too big for 41. So I don't know.
Yeah, but just like that, their lineup's looking good. I had wondered when it sounded like Ethan Miller was going to commit there. I was kind of looking at their lineup thinking, so what happens with Panero? Because if
that's what I'm saying. I think their plan was Ethan Miller 57, Panero 49. Let the other guys figure out 33-41.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. But it's gonna be interesting too. We've gotten hung up with this. We like 1 week after NCAAs, we had started talking about lineup projections for next year, and it's great and it's fun. It's what we always typically do. and we do crystal ball. But all this portal stuff has to happen first. But it will be great. Maybe when things pieces finally go here and there and they get settled, we can do another show, lineup projections and stuff like that. But um, it's interesting to me. The one thing the fun to look at is the most improved team for next year. I think Iowa State has a great shot to be the most improved. I think Oregon State's going to be much better. I think Stanford's going to be a handful, and I think Lehigh is going to be solid.
Hey, what's interesting too about Iowa State is that, when Rocky came on the podcast, he said like money definitely played a factor. Like this was an awesome opportunity to capitalize on. And you got to wonder how much, Iowa State has resources, but they're not one of these typical endless money schools. You got to kind of wonder if they were really like gearing up to make a big play for Ferrari, who you thought they were going to end up landing when you put, Ferrari to there in the crystal ball. And then they end up kind of having this pot potentially available for another very good 97-pounder.
Yeah, yeah. It could be. It could be. I mean, to my knowledge, Iowa State doesn't have a big. They don't have a Bob Nichols. To my knowledge, they don't have one guy. But Dresser is certainly a fantastic fundraiser.
Yeah. I'd say Dresser and Cole are two of the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, Willie, that covers the bulk of the transfers, I believe. Let me see if there's any that we're leaving out. It's been a busy week. Brock Herman to Little Rock.
I like that.
That one you liked. Let's see. Christian Carroll transferred to Wyoming.
Love that. Love that. I think I said when we were discussing Carroll, I think I said something to the effect of he needs to be in a low pressure environment and
up at heavyweight.
Just be free. Don't stress yourself out. Just love wrestling again. And I think he can get that at Wyoming.
Now, there's some notes in the show doc if you have it pulled up. I don't know which of those. Sometimes when you hit Wild Wings and you start drinking bourbons, you put some notes that are just Willie thoughts. They're not really show notes. So I don't know which of those that you want to talk about, or we can jump to coaching moves.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of these. What's written in here, because I'll have a few Shirley Temples and I'll put some stuff in this document, and sometimes I don't even know what it is. Willie doesn't know beef. I didn't put that one in. You put that one in.
Okay, I added that one in because you tried stirring the pot. You texted me in the group chat and said, "You know what? Hot take: prime ribs overrated." And all I said was the 3-4 times a year you have it if you cook it right. Which, by the way, if you don't cook your own prime rib, you're probably not getting the best experience, especially at a restaurant or somewhere that cooks it the day before and then it's under a hot plate or a lamp. So, but what I had said was the 3 times a year you have prime rib, it's rated right where it needs to be. It doesn't crack my top 5. And then you hit Twitter and say, I might need a new co-host. This is not going good. And I'm just cracking up like
So I like prime rib's good.
It's good the 2-3 times a year you have it.
It's rated where it should be rated. You're right. It's good. I almost got it the other night, by the way. I was going to.
It's not. Listen, I don't really recommend getting it at a restaurant because it's never really fresh. It's like the day before they cook it. It's rare that it's fresh. If you can get it fresh, great, but you got to cook it. Like when I cook it, if you just keep driving east and you head to Rochester, I'll cook one for you. It's so good.
Here's my rule of thumb. Go where they do a lot of volume, because if they don't do a lot of volume,
yeah,
it's sitting there, right? Okay, that's my prime rib take. I just love the flame kiss of a grilled ribeye.
Yeah, look at. I think a tomahawk reverse seared is my 1-1. I think you smoke a nice 1.5 to 2-inch tomahawk, which is a ribeye with the long bone. And then you smoke it for like an hour and a half, and then you throw it on high heat, 650 degrees for a minute aside, and you get that flame, you get that crisp,
char.
Char. Like, yeah, you can't beat that. That's a 1-1.
Uh, yeah, that's my beef take. Okay, let's hit some other ones here. It's absolutely amazing to me how fans can't separate feelings from reality. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that. Let's just get rid of that one. Oh, national duels selections. Um, so it's difficult. It's difficult to select the best teams for next year. It's hard to plan in
Well,
this day of
basically, yeah.
day of portal. So
Give the context.
Okay, the context is Oklahoma State essentially a group in Oklahoma are bringing back national duels, and it's going to be 16 teams, and they came out with the framing or the system by which they select these 16 teams. They took the top 12. So this is what they did for year one. They took the top 12 returning teams from NCAAs
And invited them. They're not that's a thing that I feel like some people miss. They invited the top 12 place teams at NCAAs. Doesn't mean they're all going.
Right.
It just means they're invited.
Not all 12 will go. I think we're pretty certain that Penn State will not go.
Yeah.
I don't know who else will not go. But, when they came out with that, then people immediately asked the question, which is a good question, is that the right process? Because, back in the day there was a team like Arizona State that had a national champ at 25 in Robles, a national champ at 57 in Bubba Jenkins, and they had an All-American at 184. And they took like fifth. And they both graduated, right? Robles. Now, under this scenario, they would be in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But their dual meet record that year was like 2-17.
Right.
And they just lost their 2 or 3 biggest pieces. So selecting the teams or inviting the teams based on NCAA team scores is not always very conducive to selecting the right teams. And so there's questions with that. I wouldn't do it that way, but they're trying to get it out year one. They're trying to just lay the landscape and make adjustments after that. What I would have done, here's the problem. The problem is timing. These teams need to schedule and budget for this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And how late they can wait to adjust their schedule, I don't know. They probably have to have their schedule into their athletic departments well ahead of time. So the right way to do it, the best way to do it is, and I did it. I have this all in spreadsheets. I have the projected lineups for each of the top 20 teams. I mean, I did a lot of work preparing for this because I thought that they were going to look at it and determine the top X amount of teams, 16 teams, based on projected lineup. The problem is this portal and the timing. The dust isn't settled yet, and these schedules have to be in.
Yeah, and so to clarify too, the top 12 teams, which were Penn State, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Iowa, Minnesota, Ohio State, Cornell, North Carolina State, Northern Iowa, Illinois, Virginia Tech, Michigan, have until tomorrow, April 15th, to confirm and sign the participation agreement that they're in. From there, teams that finish 13th to 24th, as of now, are eligible for a drawing, which will happen on the 24th. Those teams are Purdue, Missouri, Lehigh, Penn, Little Rock, Arizona State, Stanford, West Virginia, Navy, Wyoming, South Dakota State, Indiana, Maryland, and Oregon State. That's going to take place in 10 days on the 24th. But I suspect we're going to see a couple more teams added to that based on who of the top 12 says no.
Right. And
or maybe not, I guess. You don't. If only a couple say no, you probably don't need to add any, but.
Right.
Because you'll have another 12 teams.
So they're going to go with a random draw from teams 13 to 24.
Yeah.
They're literally going to pick names out of a hat. Like a lottery. They're literally going to do is have like a ping pong ball with those teams' names on them in a little thing, a little tumbler, and they're going to reach in and grab one.
And they said in their press release that they know this is not an accurate representation of dual team rankings.
Because they do know it, but it's because of the timing of all this.
Yeah.
And hopefully they told me we will go through iterations of this and fine tune it. But for year one, we're gonna get the field set early. Now that being said, I get what they're doing, but I'm like a nerd, right? I'm like, no, this team is clearly better than this team. Like, don't do a lottery. I'm telling you right now, this team is going to be much better. Mm-hmm. Like, I think Lehigh is going to be in the lottery, right? Mm-hmm. To me, no way should they be in the lottery. To me, they should 1,000% be in. Yep. Their lineup is going to be nails next year.
Compared to UNI, who's automatically in, but seems like they're going to lose a lot.
There's several teams that are already in that aren't going to be great in a dual meet setting. So, but I get it, and I'm on board with it. And hopefully, in future years we can get the timing a little bit better worked out. But who knows? I mean, with this portal stuff, you don't know. But again, there are very clear teams that are going to be good in a dual meet setting next year that aren't in right now.
Yeah. Lehigh being one that should be automatically in.
Agree. Okay, so that was another. Here's one that's bound to be a very popular. I mean, this is full disclosure here. I'm just digging into like my soul. And I'm not hiding it from you guys. I wrote this down. PSU and Okie State noob journalists and social media accounts. Listen, I'm sorry. Well, you guys are off your ever-loving rocker. I mean, you're wild, you're bouncing off the walls, and half the time you're full of shit. You're not putting out accurate information. You're doing like shows and podcasts, and you don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry that that's true.
And I had said I think that's a sign of growth. I think the fact that more people want to make content and more people want to make, kind of niche podcasts and be niche content creators, I do think overall it's a sign of growth of the sport that more people want to contribute and more people have a passion enough where, whether they have a separate account just for wrestling and their fandom or whether they want to create content around it. Like, I think that's a sign of growth.
I love the volume. I love the volume of wrestling talk and wrestling chatter and social media accounts and podcasts and shows. I love it. I said, I might have tweeted it, like, wrestling's never been this hype after NCAAs. Never.
Yeah. It is funny, too, because, well, go ahead.
Everybody's talking about the portal. Everybody's talking about figures. Everybody's talking about lineups for next year. There's much more optimism from more fan bases. Like, man, I can't wait till next year. That's great. That's awesome. However, there's also a lot of nonsense.
Sometimes it's not just the content creators, it's like fans. I had a Hokie fan yesterday quote tweet me when I said, like, here's the update. Okay, Ethan was going to go to Iowa State. He obliged on one last visit. He flipped to Virginia Tech, and I had a guy say, sources tell me this is untrue. This is a bad look. I'm literally texting Ethan Miller about it, and you're telling me sources say this is untrue. And then I tell him, I'm like, dude, I'm not like. Another guy told me I was gaslighting because I didn't say where Ethan was going. I'm like, and then he's like, the one Hokie fan's like, well, show me screenshots. Dude, I'm not showing you. I'm not going to screenshot conversations now. Like, come on.
No, I know. There's just all kinds of stuff. I'm
But
not
again,
going to get specific because I don't want to poo-poo on certain individuals. Like, I don't want to call a guy out and say, hey, you know that stuff that you said? That's totally false.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. Look, you're talking about wrestling. That's great. Talk more about wrestling. But
talk more about wrestling. That's what the brain says. No gatekeeping here.
No gatekeeping.
We love wrestling.
Love wrestling. Okay, here's another one. Goat follower who is the GOAT.
This is a separate rant. This is not. This is not tied.
This is a different topic. I'm shifting gears here to my next drunken note. Ono does not have 4 years, and the reason I put that in there is because GOAT follower. I said I'm coming out with the big board. I was going to come out with it last Thursday, but what I really wanted to do. I really wanted to put the time in. I really wanted to vet these. These numbers sort of get associated with these kids forever now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I want to get it right because I want to get it right. But I also don't want to snub anybody. I want to get the order a little bit better. So I wanted to do my due diligence, and I didn't put it out Thursday. It is up now. When you're watching this video, it'll be up, the final senior big board, where I have them evaluated, and their kind of pecking order of being top prospects. But when I said I was coming out with it, GOAT followers said, where do you have Ono? Ono is not even determined how many years of eligibility he has. It is quite possible that he only has 1 or 2. He does not have 4. So
now, can you disclose the text that Cal sent you?
Yes, I can disclose the Cal text. I said, Cal, can you tell me how many years of eligibility Ono will have? And he texted 1 digit, and it was 7. He said, Ono has 7 years of eligibility. But that's not. Yeah. Okay. What else, bud?
Let's talk some coaching moves because there's starting to be some hirings, and I feel like a lot of these aren't really public. Like a lot of them are more just looking.
They're not public. It's interesting. At least now maybe like on their job board they're posted or something, I don't know, but they're certainly not like well known or publicized or out there, right? So Lehigh has a position. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure if it's a staff position or it's an RTC position or both. Penn is doing some shuffling around. They have sort of the same situation. App State is hiring an assistant. George Mason is hiring an assistant. Central Michigan's hiring an assistant. So there's some interesting, and I've tried to connect some guys, some recent graduates the last 2-3 years have reached out to me, and I've connected some of them. I think Cornell has a position of some sort open too. But some guys have reached out to me, and I try to make the connection. Jo is one of them. Jaden Ironman is another one. I believe Sam Latona is looking. He wants to coach. I didn't have anything to do with Sam. Let me be clear on that. But I'm just talking about some guys, some popular guys that are looking for jobs. So it'll be interesting. I like seeing the new blood get into coaching. Um,
It's a
Sammy
quiet coaching
Sasso.
carousel this
Sammy
year.
Sasso's another one.
You don't think he'll stick around Ohio State? I thought for sure they would just add him on staff somewhere there.
I think they will if he can stay there. I mean, they have a position for him, but I think his wife slash fiance needs to move, might need to move for her professional life.
Got it.
So I think Sammy's looking, see what's out there. I think he'd make a fantastic, fantastic coach. Uh, Obviously, we had Roper leave, so there's a spot opened up at UNI. Gilman not at Oklahoma State, so a spot open there. Uh, there are murmurs that Illinois has a spot open. Some chatter there. Nothing
You want to
public.
expound on that? I love when you're
No,
trying. I love when you try to navigate the waters. I know what you're doing.
you know what I'm doing. There's okay. There's a rumor. I don't even know if
Rumor
it's
alert.
that somebody at Illinois on the Illinois staff is no longer there. I'll just say that.
Which would in turn mean that there's an opening.
Correct.
It is funny too, because sometimes when these rumors come out, so rumors come out and you try to see what's official. Even with I could tell what fans were doing with Gilman. Like Gilman was still on the coaching staff site for Oklahoma State. Now, a lot of times that's just delays, admin stuff. I can tell you for this one, I think we can just say it, which is why I think it was funny that you weren't. It's Imar. He's off the website. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, is he now?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this happened like a couple weeks ago, and there was a delay. But yeah, he's officially off the website, so I think we're good to just say it now.
Well, so yeah, when I first heard it, he was still on the website. That's why
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, I ain't saying the guy's fired if he ain't fired.
I don't know that he was fired. I'm saying we heard he's no longer there, and he's not on the website anymore.
But yeah, I'm not saying yeah.
Whether
And
he resigned,
the most important part though is you never know when they tell the team. I don't want to
100%.
say on the show. I don't want to say on the show that this guy's no longer there and Lucas Bird doesn't know about it.
100%. And that's one reason why if I put a graphic out, or like sometimes like Ethan Miller, the decision's in on Thursday, ended up changing, but like I want these guys to be able to tell their teammates, tell their coaches. It's funny how fast, man, information gets out there because so Rocky and I were friends. We were talking about everything he was doing. And so within we were planning to do a show that morning, whatever it was, Monday maybe, whatever it was, 20 minutes after he told the coaches and his teammates that he was officially going in the portal and leaving, it was on Twitter within 20 minutes. So you can see the general path of coaches and or teammates that the second somebody says they're gone, they pull a feathers. He's gone. And so it's funny. You can tell a lot of the information you see out there comes from once either teammates or coaches let it out, but yeah, I don't like saying anything because you don't know, but I think this one is official now. Yeah, but I do like watching you kind of navigate that. That's why I let you do that before I told you.
It's like I think like a wrestler tells the staff and his teammates he's leaving, he's going somewhere else, and then I feel like the coach is like text people and say, yeah, he left. Iowa gave him $4.6 billion.
Right. Yeah. Yes, a lot of I don't like to either. I'm very let the athletes announce where they're going.
Yep.
All right, that's coaching
so
moves.
Catch me up because I've been driving across the country and my big project was I had to get the final national rankings out. I did that. I had to get the final senior big board out. I did that. Um, but it's difficult when you're driving across the country and keeping up with everything. I have to redo or update the entries for cadets and juniors at the Open, but and man, it really the worst was I couldn't really follow anything at Euros because I was just busy and offline. But what's going on?
Sounds like Sidikov's injured and out. He lost and then
the first thing I noticed at
Sabalov?
Euros, like what? No,
Did you see that news?
That's like surprising to no one. The first thing I noticed is they're still using UWW for Russia. They're still doing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so funny too because like Eric Olanowski, I get he has to do it, but when they're talking about guys and they have to mention their team, he's like from UWW's neutral team. I get why he has to do that. It sounds so funny. So many years in a row, just hearing this now, like
yeah.
Couple nuggets. Sabalov suspended for 6 years because this is crazy. He evaded a drug test last April. They let him compete at the Olympics anyways. How about if you don't take the drug test, you can't compete? What are we doing letting a guy who evades a drug test, and granted, he finished 5th, so there wasn't, whatever, but what are we doing letting a guy just say, no, I'm not taking your drug test, and I'm going to go into the Olympics?
With the amount of money that the Olympics make, why don't they test you before you compete? Everybody, every entry. Anyway, it's frustrating for years and years and years. The results are fluky because people come back and pop, and then they readjust and okay, you were 5th, now you're bronze, like whatever. Well, it would have been nice if you removed that guy, and I really would have won bronze.
Yeah, but yeah, Valiev beat Sidikov 4-2 for I think gold. I didn't watch too much of Euros. There's so many different random things going on. I've been so locked into the portal.
I really wasn't getting at Euros. What I was going to ask you to update me on is any changes, updates for the U.S. Open senior field.
Well, so on April 4th was the early registration deadline. So that's when the bulk of guys that you'll see enter. They want the discount, especially if you're Tight Mercury, if you're these clubs that are entering guys.
They want the discount.
You're not going to pay an extra $20 to $40 per guy. So a lot of the guys were in by April 4th, April 5th. We have seen some stragglers, and, there's some schools that are still just not going to put anything out there, like the Nittany Line Wrestling Club. They're not really going to put their guys out until like the week of. But yeah, Nico Megaludis, he's competing at 61, which is great to see.
I like that.
Love me some Nico. There's a bunch of 57 kilos seems
bad.
There's not a lot of guys there that are like, for years we've seen these fights of returning world teamers, world medalists. It's honestly kind of light when you look through. Like, I'll tell you the top guys there: Brandon Courtney, Caleb Smith, Liam Cronin, Dom Munaretto, Brandon McCrowan, Sheldon Seymour, Brendan McCrowan, Sheldon Seymour, Dan DeShazer, Nico Provo. That's it.
Nico Provo's alive.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. He just got in over the weekend or Friday. But, that's it. And the winner of that, now I think that Spencer Lee is kind of getting the David Taylor treatment of, let's just go to 61 kilos.
What do you mean?
David Taylor was such a staple at 86. Guys would try to go down to 79 or up to 92 because it's like he's so damn good. And it feels like there's a little bit of that where all these guys who, I don't know if they can get down to 57, But you see the Buzakis, DeSanto, Garrett, Marcus Blaze, Dayton Fix, Seth Gross, Nico Megaludis, NATO, all at
Wow.
61. So
Wow.
61 is going to be bananas compared to 57, which is going to be extremely light.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know if there is the Spencer Lee factor, but I think the bulk of those guys are actually true 61s, not
No, I
57.
agree. That's what I said. I don't know how much of it is, but I mean, I can't remember 57 being this light in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
65, we got some, Real Woods. Can't wait to see him. Jesse Mendez, Joey McKenna. You've got a lot of these guys that we've seen what they've done.
You know how I don't like when the young kids that are junior eligible go up to seniors, go up to
Yeah.
U23s. I don't like it. I like when they wrestle their own division. That being said, I would be pretty interested in see what Jax Forrest could do at 57 with that field.
100%. I think he could win it. I
Right?
think Marcus Blaze has to be up there as a favorite at 61.
Yeah. Well, I mean that field's loaded.
I still think that Blaze will
But
be
yeah, he's
among the
for sure. I
favorites.
mean he's beaten a bunch of them.
Right. 70 kilos for me is going to be one of the wildest weights. There's a lot of guys I like Yanni coming up to 70. You got Jackson Arrington there, James Green, Bryce Antonian, Yaya Thomas,
What about 65? Nothing.
Pantelio. No, I was saying 65. It's a lot of guys who we've seen. Joey McKenna, Real Woods, Jesse Mendez. It's not that deep, but Carter
Yeah, somebody
Young.
pointed out to us on Twitter that whatever they have entered for senior Pan Ams is kind of weird. Like that has Real Woods at 61.
Yeah, Real Woods is not at 61. A lot of times for some of them, what they do is the previous world teamers usually automatically get the Pan Am spot if they want it. So typically what USA Wrestling will do when Pan Ams, I think, are like middle of May, USA Wrestling will just send, like, I think, the top guy eligible at each weight. So, like, Spencer Lee and Aaron Brooks are in there at 57.92. I saw, I think Rob maybe tweeted us that. Those guys can have it if they want it. I don't know if they've accepted yet. I'm assuming they both will, but I don't think that the senior level Pan Am roster has been finalized yet. I think what UWW has is just here's our initial lists
Yeah, you
subject
have
to
to
change.
submit somebody.
Yeah, so I think they just submitted the top eligible guys. I don't know why Real's at 61 there. He's definitely
How
not
about
competing at 61.
has anybody? We talked last time about the heavyweight field being light as well. Has anybody else entered at heavyweight?
No, it's really interesting. So you got Trent Hilger, you have Hayden Zilmer, but you don't have some of these other guys. You have Christian Lance, Lucas Stoddard, Jordan Wood. You don't have Wyatt's not entered yet. Mason Paris is not entered yet. I'm wondering if these guys who've kind of intended to compete at the Open, I wonder if they're just going to go to the World Team Trials. It's weird, like Mason, you have Cliff Keen registered, but Mason's not registered yet. So I don't really.
Yeah, yeah.
But in another note, too, of U.S. Open, which we should do a whole preview show as it gets closer. But
Yeah, I was just asking for like any
yeah,
significant updates.
so I had somebody ask me about this, too. But so Final X will get the declarations this week. Spencer Lee declared for 57. Macy Kilty declared. The only other ones really for men's freestyle that can declare are Vito and Dake. And it sounds like Dake's not going 74. So with Dake going up and Brooks going up, I don't think those guys are going to declare. They're going to have to go to the team trials or the Open. Where very likely Dake can only take his Final X spot if he goes 74. Which does not seem likely.
So
Brooks and Dake would
the way
have.
it was in the past, if nobody's declared at a weight, the U.S. Open winner gets that spot.
Correct.
So man, stakes way high.
Correct.
Good.
So that's where I was going is assume, let's just say Dake and Brooks both going up. The only two they're likely going to declare is 57 and 61, meaning the next 8 weights, 65 through heavyweight, winners of the Open all go right to Final X, and they'll wrestle the winner of the World Team Trials next month.
Yeah, so that may be why 57's not.
Could be too.
That's why 57's not, because the Open doesn't matter except for seeding for the trials.
Correct.
The winner you have to win the trials. Where at the other weights, you win the Open, you're in Final X.
Correct. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see who these final entries are. Feel like Nittany Wrestling Club's the biggest one that kind of wait and see who's going, and but yeah, not a lot. It seems like the rest of the field is pretty set. Brayden Thompson and Rocco Welch both in at 86. We were talking about that yesterday. Listed line by line next to each other.
How
about Oklahoma? The Cowboys have Zahid, Plott, Brayden Thompson all at 86.
Do they have a lot of guys registered though? Overall, are they registered yet? Did Cowboy Wrestling Club fully enter yet?
I don't know if they're fully registered because all but Zahid were registered through Titan Mercury. So Hamidi, Plott, Rob, Gastain, Gary, Benjamin Mower, Brayden Thompson, all registered through Titan Mercury / Cowboy RTC. Zahid was the only non-one who entered through just Cowboy RTC. So those are the 7 guys now. I'm not sure if you're going to see a Strangler or one not through Titan Mercury register. Yeah. I also do not believe. Let me check if Hawkeye. I don't think the Hawkeye Wrestling Club has entered anybody, again, apart from the guys who Titan Mercury entered, like DeSanto.
Yeah. All right. What's next for you, for us? Hey, the big board's up. Go check that out. I don't know exactly what I'm hitting next. I guess I kind of want to wait to do 2026 till after Vegas. It's a real fine line though, because June 15th, all these colleges are coming up with their June 15th call list, right? For the sophomores that are going to become juniors. And so you kind of want to update that to help the coaches out. I mean, all the coaches are asking me for it. But at the same time, you don't want to do it till after Vegas because you're going to do it and then your opinion's going to change after like one of the crown jewels that you use to evaluate.
Yeah. And what's next for me, I mean, honestly, I want to keep the interviews going. There's been a lot of great ones on the show lately, and people have been loving them. And then, honestly, I think some of this over the next week, what happens with the portal, it seems like the portal's finally quieting down. I mean, aside from a couple of guys finding their landing spot this weekend, we didn't really see any more big names hitting.
Who's the big ones we're looking out for? Lackland?
I'd say McNeil, Chittum are probably 2 of the biggest guys that are still in the portal right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But then I think, early next week, it's probably time for us to do the Open preview because the Open is next weekend now.
Yeah, I'm going to be – that's true. I'm going to be cranking out cadet stuff for sure. All right, giddy up.
TJ
I'm
Stewart.
off to Mount Rushmore.
TJ Stewart is apparently a done deal. He's got to announce that one. So, all right, go to Mount Rushmore. Top 4 Mount Rushmore in wrestling. Go.
Dan Gable, Willie Saylor, Cale Sanderson, Justin Basch. Go Bills.
Go Bills.